Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alan Smason, and welcome once again to NOLA Theater Talk. This is a production of the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, and basically we broadcast not only to that particular Facebook group, but also to the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, which is the support page for social media for theatercriticism.com, a website for reviews. And also my own YouTube channel. You can look it up by my name or the first name that we used, some years ago when I first set up my account. In the meantime, we would invite anybody who would like to ask a question or make a comment tonight using either YouTube or possibly using Facebook to consider going to StreamYard.com/Facebook. This will allow your name to appear in the various posting online, because StreamYard, this is the application we're using, considers your account with Facebook as a third party, or at least Facebook considers it a third party, and so therefore they need to get your permission to do that. And that's pretty much it. So we've taken a little bit of a hiatus. We had Heather Massing on a couple weeks back to talk about her upcoming show at BB Stage Door Canteen, which over the course of the last 2 weeks, she has concluded the run over there. And that was, of course, Hetty, The Life and Inventions of Hetty Lamar. That was one of the first shows to allow people to come back to BB Stage Door Canteen. They've had a couple of other shows that were much smaller in scale and didn't have as many people in the audience. Now that a lot of the masking restrictions have been eased, you'll see that there'll be more opportunities for more and bigger audiences to show up. So, matter of fact, the show was so successful in advance that they had to actually put a second show on Saturday at 2 p.m. because they had sold out of their Friday, Saturday, and Sunday availability in advance. So they only had one other opportunity. And so they had an extra show this weekend, which we didn't know about in advance when we talked about it. But I'm so glad that they did that and gave an opportunity for a lot of people who wouldn't have been able to see the show be able to witness Heather's performance. I hope to get a chance to talk to Heather before she leaves. She was very kind to me, and we did spend some time together and talked about New Orleans, et cetera. But she was also doing her thing, which is to promote herself and to try to get more people to learn about her show and what she does. So hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about an upcoming visit back to New Orleans for another one of her shows. So let's go into what we're going to be talking about tonight. Those of you who checked out the postings on Facebook or on YouTube know that we have a brand new theater company in New Orleans. It's called Quarter Renaissance Productions. And we have two of the principals who are living in New Orleans now, Elizabeth Bissette, who we're going to have on just a second, and Breelynne Upton. And they're going to talk about some of the very exciting readings that they're going to be doing, and, of course, also full productions. And also a really fascinating and a really interesting opportunity for people to find out about a new venue, which might be able to be utilized by other theater companies as well as Quarter Renaissance Productions, or possibly, as an opportunity for some of the other theater festivals or other groups, et cetera, to utilize in conjunction with Quarter Renaissance Productions. So we'll find out about that. So without any further ado, let me bring in, and again, I assume Elizabeth Bissette. Elizabeth, would you call yourself the artistic director, or would you have a title for your name as far as with the company? What do you do?
Yes, artistic director. Yes.
Good. That's always the good fallback. Some people like executive director. Some people like managing director. And some people prefer just to be called, principal. But artistic director has always been my favorite. And you don't actually hail from New Orleans. You're a little bit further north, correct?
Yes, I'm originally from Richmond, Virginia, and
Okay.
I moved here from Nashville, Tennessee.
And in Richmond, were you involved with theater there, or did you start at an early age in Richmond? And then
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. I did start in an early age in Richmond. I attended the School of Performing Arts of Richmond, which is a wonderful program called Spark. I was part of that from the age of 8 to 17, and continued to participate in theater through college, of course. Won the theater award without majoring in it, and at that point decided maybe instead of going on for the next year in college, to take a year off and try to see if I could do professional theater in Chicago. So took a year off and did participate in some productions there. Ultimately returned to finish college, and continued from that point forward. Though there just was never a time that I wasn't in a play up to the age of about 30. It just was what I did. I did leave Chicago for
And
pleasure.
what companies were you involved with in Chicago? I mean,
In
anything that we know?
Chicago, I did a production of No Exit through a group called the Unofficial Soup Kitchen, which wasn't a, super known. It was a sort of grassroots group of writers and actors and other creatives. And that was the main thing I did. Did a lot of auditioning, but because I had managed to get cast in anything in Chicago at all, I think I was about 19 or 20 at the time, and especially to have such a large role. I mean, as you know, No Exit has all of 3 people in it, so all of them are large parts in an interesting play. I took that as momentum to just keep doing it. And was part of, when I returned to college, was in Kentucky and worked with the Public Theater of Kentucky there, which is wonderful. Also did a lot in Louisville, which, as you know, is the home of the Humana Festival, the new play festival. So it has an Actors Theater of Louisville, which then has a trickle down effect
Right.
on the local theaters. So was able to do a lot of interesting and pretty continuous work there with different companies. I was part of the premiere of a play. It would be too much to go through blow by blow of all of it.
Well, I know that Actors Theater had a very interesting connection to the American Theater Critics Association. We had a number of our Steinberg theater awards that we presented, for the new play of the year playwright. We did top prize of $25,000 and 2 follow-up prizes of $75 each, $7,500 each. And so, that's not bad. When you think about it, second place, two second places get $15,000, and the top prize gets $25,000. That's $40,000 in prize money for new plays, and
which is
that goes a little. Now I understand that there may be some others out there that are larger awards, but not for new plays. So I think that's the largest for new plays. So Elizabeth, before I bring Breelynne in, and I want to certainly bring her into the conversation as well. Can you give our audience first off an explanation as to why you moved from essentially Nashville to New Orleans, and what was behind your mind, and what happened in 2020?
That was it all just didn't. Well, ultimately, I moved from acting to writing and directing, and that started with I wrote a Southern Gothic adaptation of Faust that I directed and was performed in Richmond as part of a very large festival at an art gallery there called the Carnival of Five Fires. It's actually the largest event in the city of Richmond. I just discovered I absolutely loved, more than anything, not only theater, but theater when it is part of larger, or maybe not larger, but part of multimedia production. And so continued to do that. And when I was in Nashville, I have a music background also, and had started putting events together that were called the Witches' Ball. And we had music, of course, it being Nashville was the anchor of it more so than theater, but we did have different types of performance art. We had a theater component to it, and the events just immediately took off, hitting the ground running. and just gained more and more momentum over about a year and a half there. And I was using a lot of performers from Memphis, and it just was this sort of logical next move as far as expanding what those productions were doing was to, of course, tour them. And I thought, well, I mean, the people are already in Memphis, so we just, bring people down from Nashville there. And if you're in Memphis, then gradually, of course, not all at once, but to gradually then incorporate New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved down here to work on and further develop that, never imagining I wouldn't just be able to hop back and forth to Nashville.
Right.
It wouldn't have been a problem at all to go to Nashville for a weekend and keep the momentum of the productions there as I gradually integrated Memphis and
But now
New Orleans.
Nashville, Nashville and everything was shut down just like it was here, everywhere worldwide.
Yeah.
So you couldn't do anything even if you wanted to, right?
No, I couldn't. And so all of a sudden, the very practical, logical idea of, well, Nashville's not that far, and just because I moved to New Orleans doesn't mean I have to shut down productions that are once a month in Nashville. I can go stay there for a weekend a month and do them, and then progressively integrate, like I said, Memphis and New Orleans as a year or two even went on. But then unfortunately, pretty immediately, bam, here was the pandemic, and wasn't able to do that, or in fact, as we've all been, much of anything as far as certainly live production went. So
and you've been a denizen, if you will, a resident now of the French Quarter, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So you are really living the real New Orleans life. That so many people have lived. The Tennessee Williams and the Eudora Welty's and all the other people, William Faulkner, et cetera, all the famous writers who have been down. And in your honor, because of that, tonight I made my drink, which is a Vieux Carré. It's in a Sazerac glass, but it's a Vieux Carré.
Oh,
now,
cool.
Do you know what a Vieux Carré is? Have you any idea what that is?
No, do tell.
So for those of you who don't know, it's really interesting. It's sort of based, I guess, in part on a Sazerac and the rye whiskey, tradition that we've had with that. But it's 3/4 of an ounce of rye whiskey, 3/4 of an ounce of brandy, which is, of course, going back to the French influence, because brandy and cognac were certainly what the French prefer to drink. Then 3/4 of an ounce of sweet vermouth. So you've got basically 1.5 ounces of liqueur or liquor, and then a 1/4 of an ounce of Benedictine.
Ooh, that sounds wonderful.
And then you add a couple of dashes of Peychaud bitters and Angostura bitters, and then I didn't shake it. I just sort of stirred it up. So, and it's supposed to be served over ice. So you build the drink, and that's what I did. But it's not a Sazerac, even though it's in a Sazerac. And it does look a little similar to a Sazerac in terms of the color. It's a little more brown than I like, a little bit more redness to my Sazerac. But so that's what I made. So what did you bring into the room?
It's nowhere near that exciting. I guess it's a nod to Tennessee. I have Jim Beam and Coke.
So
but in a dramatic silver goblet to go with all these witchy themes. We do.
All right. Well, with that in mind, let me bring in Breelynne as well. Breelynne, welcome to NOLA Theater Talk. How are you doing tonight?
Thank you, Alan. I'm doing great.
And what are you having tonight to sample?
Well, I will be having a non-alcoholic beverage. I'm having a Lipton green tea.
All right. I tell people it doesn't have to be alcoholic, just as long as you have something, because this is an opportunity for us to it's an icebreaker. It's literally an icebreaker. But the idea is that it also allows us to share something. And if you've got some kind of nifty drink that you love to have and share with other people, you have an opportunity. And besides, you get to hear what these recipes are. So you find out what it is in a Vieux Carré, and you can make one for yourself. So there you go. So Breelynne, how did you manage to get connected with Elizabeth? How did that happen?
We both kind of moved here around the same time. Kind of before the pandemic hit, I moved here not last January, but the one before that. And I actually go to school in Florida. So now that I am here for this summer, this is where I'll be spending my summer. I've been trying to get more connected with the community, and Liz has been great connecting me with people. who are kind of like-minded.
Fantastic. And again, what school in Florida are you attending?
Yes, I go to Rollins College. It's a liberal arts college.
Okay, I think I've heard of it. And you're what now? A junior to be or
Sophomore to be.
sophomore?
So
Sophomore.
that explains the T.
Yes, that's all right. Well, that's all right. You know what? If you'd had it, I wouldn't have reported you. So yeah, it's all right. So, Breelynne, what kind of background do you have in theater? Would you go into a little bit for everybody?
Sure. So I was involved with the performance arts my whole life, kind of. My mom ran a dance studio, so I just was always involved with that. Started teaching ballet lessons when I was like 16, helping out. And eventually I started teaching like my own hip hop classes and things like that. And so last year, obviously, I was a freshman at the school, and they kind of shut down the theater program because of the pandemic. It was a weird year. They would do shows, obviously, like some readings online over Zoom, but it wasn't the same.
So again, Liz, you're going to be talking about what you're going to be offering, and we'll be talking about some of the opportunities for people to see. But first off, let me discuss the venue where you are located, so that people can get an idea about it. And then because it's such a new venue and such a new company, Breelynne's probably not going to have that much to add to that. But we can find a little bit more about what you're going to be doing this. Have you got an idea about what you're going to be doing this summer? In terms of production? Yeah, Breelynne as well.
Breelynne, I'm sorry.
Yeah. You know what you're going to be doing?
Absolutely. I will be here assisting Liz with the theater, and
will you be taking part? Will you be taking part in terms of performing or just behind the scenes?
I'll be, I think, just behind the scenes. Just kind of staying in my shell this summer, I think. But
getting a lot of experience. Okay.
Absolutely.
So Liz, tell me a little bit about where you are. What's the story in terms of the venue, the place, and this is a find for a theater company to find a performing place in the French Quarter that's going to be able to bring people in. So tell me about it.
Yeah, we are extremely excited about this. The building is at 536 Royal. It is the only, I believe, Breelynne, is it the only existing Spanish architecture?
It is, yes.
It is. Yeah, it was built in 1770 and remains. And it was purchased by Lyle Saxon in 1920, who was the head of the Louisiana Federal Writers Project later on. But in 1920, it was Lyle Saxon who, it's arguably single-handedly, that might be a strong, to my understanding, pretty close, instigated the French Quarter Renaissance of the 20s by inviting writers and other artists that he knew to come down here and stay. And one of the first places they stayed was in this humongous, at that time, 18-room house at 536 Royal. And William Faulkner, Sinclair Lewis, and John Steinbeck all actually literally lived there at one time together, to my understanding. It's an amazing space. John Steinbeck lived in the back house, which is part of what we're going to be utilizing as our set for his play. Sinclair Lewis, I mean. And I believe Sinclair Lewis was married in the courtyard. In addition to that, there's an enormous ballroom that can be used to stage productions, in addition to creative use of the courtyard. The building is being renovated. Breelynne's parents are the ones who have purchased and are renovating it. So she is actually pretty knowledgeable about a lot of details just to do with that I may not be aware of. And she's been involved in that and been very interested in the history since the beginning. when they discovered that Lyle Saxon had been the owner and these artists had lived there, they became extremely excited about that idea. And when I suggested maybe doing something to commemorate and honor and integrate the work of these writers, also the fact that it was Lyle Saxon's house, that's not ever really been a focal point as a historic building with previous owners. They became tremendously excited about that and have been very, very supportive of using it as an art space, at the very least during this year while the renovations are underway, and have even accommodated all of this by scheduling where the renovations are happening around what spaces we would want to use it for the production schedule. But we're just so excited. It's an amazing building. It's amazing acoustically. It's amazing architecturally.
For people who are trying to get an idea, it's not too far from the Historic New Orleans collection, right?
No, it's a couple of doors down from the Historic New Orleans collection. And it is always housed. There are two commercial spaces on the first floor, one of which has always been an art gallery and is now still an art gallery. That part is open and has some amazing art hanging. We had a soft opening last night. And we're having the focus, though, be fine art rather than the commercial art you're most routinely seeing in the quarter. So it's a little bit different. And we're thinking, working forward, doing some planning on integrating the artwork with the productions. One thing I did with the Faust production in Richmond was invited artists to submit work that reflected the characters of the play, or sought artists who had existing work. And then I wrote monologues that worked with it based on it. I was a writer for Fine Art Magazine for about a decade and have had a tremendous amount of fun, as I said, integrating that layer into the multimedia production. So that's going on with the space too. We're just tremendously excited about all of it.
Those of you just joining us, this is NOLA Theater Talk. We're back after a little bit of a little time off. A lot of things going on at this time as we're really starting to see more and more productions being announced. Masking restrictions are being eased, and again, we're seeing more people in audiences. So it has every indication to me, and I think to a lot of people out there, that perhaps the semblance of what we used to know as normal will be returning fairly soon. Again, I'm Alan Smason. Those of you who want to join in conversation tonight, feel free to add a comment. We'll hopefully be able to post it, provided, of course, it's reasonable. And we'll answer any of your questions that you might have. We try our best to answer any questions that you might pose. And I think there might be some people who have some questions legitimately, Liz, about what you're going to be doing. And we'll talk about your productions. But, I did want to advise everybody that what you've told me in advance is that you're going to start off a little bit more on the slower side. You're going to do some readings and get yourself acclimated to the community here, introduce people. And readings are, something I know quite a bit about. Unfortunately, the past year, I've done quite a number on this particular platform and been very privileged to help, do that. But unfortunately, the way, the readings have been with this StreamYard platform is that, you don't see anybody below this point. Nobody can tell that I'm wearing a Venus tie tonight, so, it's just nobody can tell because this is the cutoff right here up. You get to see the talking heads like on TV, and that's it. So, eventually, I guess sometimes you might be able to see side by side, and again, you see maybe a little bit lower. I don't think that much, but the point is that the readings you're going to be doing are going to be live readings, correct?
Yes.
So there's a change, for people who are used to seeing readings and they say, yeah, I know it's streaming, and no, this is going to be an actual live reading. And now, are you going to be charging admission for the live readings? Have you figured out? Okay.
Yeah.
And how will that work? Will people buy them online and come in with their tickets, or what's the mechanism there?
We're absolutely doing pre-sale for the staged readings, And if space is still available, then we will also have tickets for sale at the door. The space for those is going to be more limited because it's so hot in New Orleans that we
Yeah.
are limiting. The seating is going to need to be indoors in the ballroom, which is humongous. However, the capacity as far as a seated audience in there is about 25 people, I think, is where it's most comfortably, to 30 per performance. So, but we
Well,
will be,
yeah.
you
I
know,
mean, the
letting everyone.
Boberg, which is a theater company, has about that 40 people maybe. So you know, and they've been fairly successful in presenting a number of productions. But again, I know you'd like to have had more. But you know, 40 people is good. Will the ballroom have a way of having any kind of a seating in which people will be able to be in it, like an amphitheater type thing where it'll be raised in any way, or will it just be straight ahead?
We have that ability in the courtyard by utilizing the back house. And there's also in the ballroom a little, to a slight degree, there is, because there's a roof that's you know, that's got a gate, an iron fence of sorts around it that has always, obviously, from appearance of it, been used for people to be on it. It's not, and it's immediately adjacent. There are also outdoor balconies overlooking the front street, so there could be some seating, but it's more off to the side. And again, it's so hot in the summer that I think that's one reason we're doing just as a staged reading instead of full production, because the seating can't be diverse and provide different angles like that. Where it is air conditioned. So,
all right, well, let's get started. The first production that you plan on revealing for tonight, and it's a very famous production. Again, also controversial, but on June the 19th, which of course is a important date in Black history, you're going to be presenting the Emperor Jones. And I should say that all of these particular works were done by the Federal Theater Project, right?
yes,
That's where you came up with the idea.
yes.
And again, this is a historic poster. It's not actually one for you, but you're using the historic poster to throw back to the Federal Theater Project. So again, I had asked earlier when you and I were first booking about it, you know, there was some controversy about the use of some racial epithets that were in it that Eugene O'Neill insisted on. And I know at least one of the lead actors, you know, had objected to and changed some of the wording, et cetera, because he didn't feel comfortable, et cetera. And I think that, you know, through the years, people have seen fit to change and alter that as well. But you said that you're going to probably be doing that, right? That just in today's presentations, that's the way that those particular works are probably going to be done, right?
Yes, I feel that I'm going to leave it up to the actor, which is what O'Neill refused to do. My personal preference would be to omit the use of those words, but as I said, I think it's really up to, I think it should be what O'Neill would not do, which is leave it up to the person portraying the Emperor Jones, what their feeling is about it. And it was actually Charles Gilpin, who was from Richmond, who had the role originally, and it was performed in the 1920s prior to the Federal Theater Project existing, but then was part of its productions, obviously. And Gilpin was the first, to my understanding, African-American to have a one-man show. And he toured in Europe. He was extremely successful. But when he was fighting with O'Neill in Europe, O'Neill fired him over this.
Yeah, I think Paul Robeson substituted, didn't he?
Yeah, and then he was in the movie.
Yeah.
And Gilpin did return, though, to Broadway and directed and starred in a later production of the play. So there must have been some reconciliation that went on for at least a period of time.
Yeah. Well, he was very well known for it, you know. So it's sort of like you know, trying to, I guess you might say, family members, you know, quarreling, as it were. you know, you know, he did such an outstanding job and really did originate the role. So I think,
Yeah.
and I think that actually Gilpin toured it, like you said, outside the United States, and became more famous with it as a result.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
so
he fired him in Europe, to my understanding.
you
So
know.
because Gilpin is from Richmond, and I was, you know, as we said, performing theater there from such an early age, I've been aware of that for a really long time. I've always wanted to do this play, and have always really been kind of, you know, drawn to and felt connected to that story, because seeing how Gilpin still continues to not get a tremendous amount of recognition in Richmond, for all of his contributions to theater. So
June the 19th is when you're going to do the reading.
we're doing this for
but
Juneteenth.
but we need to know that it's going to be done as a full production in the fall later on,
Yes,
right?
it's going to come back as a full production in the fall. We're doing this as a staged reading for Juneteenth, and then starting the second week, and also going into the third and fourth weeks of September, we're going to be doing a full production of The Emperor Jones.
That's fantastic. All right, now the second production you're going to be doing, if I'm not mistaken, is Sinclair Lewis. That's right.
Yes, we're doing Sinclair Lewis. We're going to do It Can't Happen Here. And we're going to start with a stage reading of that for July 4th weekend, which I'm excited about how amazingly appropriate that is. And we're going to be doing the full production of that opening Labor Day weekend, and could not be more excited about utilizing, again, the back house where Sinclair Lewis actually lived as part of the set for this.
Anybody who's not familiar with the story, can you, in a little bit of a capsule, tell them what that story's about and why it's relevant to July the 4th?
Prior to when it was in the 30s, when, you know, Hitler was rising to power, but the United States was not paying a tremendous amount of attention to that necessarily, at least in the
we were isolationists, basically.
Yeah, there you go. That's the word I was looking for. But a lot of people obviously were aware of it, including Sinclair Lewis, and he wrote this play, It Can't Happen Here, posing the scenario of what would occur if a fascist leader were to rise to power in the United States by being elected president. And it's an amazing play. He was asked to do it, to open it on Broadway, had a number of options for it, but he insisted that it be presented by the Federal Theater Project because he wanted the greatest number of people possible in the country to see it. He felt more people would see it. And because of that, it also has remained obviously public domain as a result, so that people are always able to produce It Can't Happen Here with for total, you know, free and anytime they ever want. And a lot of people have found connections to the previous presidency with some of the behaviors and the behaviors depicted by the character who was elected president in the Sinclair Lewis play. And they are at times a little strikingly similar, to the point that I wondered if maybe an aide read this and was like, hey, he says, you know, you do this, it's effective. It's certainly not completely, he didn't, you know, it's not an absolute statement, but there are some rather eerie parallels to some of the things that we did deal with during this presidency. And
well, I could tell you, back in the 20s, you know, when fascism started, and in the 30s, you know, when the Nazis rose, you know, that was fertile territory for writers to write about. And as you said, you know, and I agree, the fact of the matter is United States was basically in a situation where it was America first, and you've heard that term before, right? You know, and it was like, we don't want to be embroiled in foreign affairs. We don't want to be embroiled in any wars, foreign wars, you know, that have anything to do with other people and really don't impact us. And of course, as it turned out, after Pearl Harbor and all the other things that happened later on, we were brought into that conflict because it was inevitable that we were going to be drawn into it. And I think that people started to realize that as we got closer and closer towards the decade of the 40s. Breelynne, I don't want you to be, feeling alone here. Of the first two projects we were talking about, Emperor Jones and It Can't Happen Here, have you ever seen or been around any of those before? Have you ever seen them performed or been involved with them?
Not until Liz introduced me to them, and honestly, it has been really eye-opening, reading works that are just scarily show up in history now and you can relate back to, and it's been really interesting. So yeah.
Well, I'm delighted that you can take part in this and learn a little bit more about obviously you're getting a real education in theater and how to produce, and obviously it's not just a glory position. There's a lot of hard work behind it.
Absolutely. And I think it's something that a lot of young people just have no culture in whatsoever and are just understanding of that type of literature. And I think it's exciting to hopefully expand on that for just all kinds of people.
So if I'm not mistaken, the next piece that we're going to talk about that you're going to be doing is going to be another reading. Is that Macbeth? Is that correct?
Voodoo Macbeth. Yes, I've long loved Voodoo Macbeth. This is my very favorite.
So I don't know what this is all about. I don't think I've ever seen it. This is obviously one that was done for the Federal Theater Project, but this was their, as they say, the Negro unit. So so this was, I assume, an all black cast that did this. And
yes.
And was the original language intact from Shakespeare, or did they alter it in some way?
No, it pretty much wasn't altered. This has long been a tremendous favorite. When I was doing my adaptation of Faust, I came across that Orson Welles had done his own adaptation for the Federal Theater Project, and that fascinated me. And as I researched that, this came to fascinate me even more, was that he had also adapted Macbeth and did a voodoo version. He was Breelynne's age when he did this. He was maybe
19.
19.
Wow.
19-year-old Orson Welles has been asked to work with the Federal Theater Project, and he.
So that had to have been before War of the Worlds. That was before 38.
Yeah. It was so cool. It was the first thing he did, really, that was a big deal. And he thought of doing a voodoo version of Macbeth. I believe his girlfriend at the time is actually the one he credits with suggesting, hey, if you're doing it with the African-American cast, why not do Voodoo Macbeth, set it in Haiti? And he used real Haitian drummers and a real witch doctor in the production, and he absolutely sold out Harlem. I mean, there are photos where there's 10,000 or more people just lined through Harlem to come see this. And there's some really cool stories. If you Google search Orson Welles, Voodoo Macbeth, witch doctor specifically, where he's on talk shows later in his life talking about some really cool, funny stories that happened during the production of this. And unfortunately, you don't see it. And I wanted people to see it. I wanted to see it. The only way to see it is to do it, because you don't see it. There's a very minimal amount of video of the original production that is on YouTube. It's little cuts of it. And I don't know. I don't understand why no one's ever produced this. I don't know why. I'm not aware. Maybe I think they have. It's existed, but it's not I'm surprised it's not a more usually done play.
So do you plan on still
pretty intact?
You plan on still having it set in Haiti, or because of voodoo and Marie Laveau and all the other history we have here? I wonder whether or not you might change the locale to New Orleans.
That's a cool idea. We'll see.
All right, we'll plant the seed there. Now, you mentioned earlier Faustus. Now, this is the Christopher Marlowe Faustus, I know. So again, this is an old work, contemporary of Shakespeare's. But my question, I guess, is Yeah, because I think he died at a very early age, like 25, if I'm not mistaken. So, he had quite an output for
Mm-hmm.
somebody who died early. So my
Oh yeah.
question, I guess, is what drew you to this, other than the fact that you had done it before, that you wanted to do this? Was because you'd done Faustus before. What drew you
Yes.
to Faustus originally?
Well, it it always struck me again, just with ideas of why hasn't this been done or more done. Thinking about, I've always just loved the story of Faust, and I just thought, a Southern Gothic interpretation of that seemed marvelously appropriate. And although I was in Richmond, not New Orleans, the adaptation that I did, I didn't do Marlowe's play. I wrote my own version of it, or
Right.
of the Faust legend, and set it in Virginia. And instead of ceremonial magic, had the title character get into all the situations he did by selling his soul at the crossroads, the Robert Johnson sort of idea, and it was
Okay.
the Voodoo Faust. I did do that before I knew there was a Voodoo Macbeth. I discovered that while along the way. And so it seemed, when I also just love Orson Welles, and he also adapted Faust for the Federal Theater. So it sort of logically came into the season that way. Um, but again, just thinking, okay, this would be really cool. I've already adapted it, but this time Orson is sticking mostly with Marlowe's. He just cuts things, moves scenes around as he
Hmm.
does with Macbeth. So
No,
I thought it would be
yeah,
neat to this time do basically Marlowe's instead of just coming up with the whole
right.
thing again, but retaining the voodoo
And
idea. With Faust, it is going to be set in New Orleans.
and will it be a full production, or you have a
Yeah,
reading too? Full
that
production
will
instead of
be a
the
full
reading, right?
production. With all of these, I'm planning on doing a staged reading, or at least scenes from it, maybe as we move further on into the full season. But doing some sort of preview version of it in some way, and in order to make it more accessible, maybe being able to do it at a lower ticket price, that sort of thing, to enable the maximum number of to facilitate as much local involvement as possible in seeing the productions and having them go on as long as they can to facilitate that involvement. The parking alone can be prohibitive
Yeah.
for people to come see things in the quarter if it's only running on a Friday and Saturday. So
And Uber's not. I was just in the quarter for a wedding this weekend, and Uber's not much less expensive, in terms of
no, no.
the difference is that with your own car, you may have to pay a higher price for the parking, but you can
Mhm.
get out when you want. With Uber and all that,
Right.
you never know when they're going to be able to get a car in there, and the traffic has been so crazy in the quarter. I mean, they have these roving groups of people parading their cars around and blocking traffic,
Oh yeah.
etc. And it got to be a little testy for a lot of people who were waiting for their rides home.
If
So
you've
you
heard
know,
loud noise behind me while we're doing this, I'm right in front of Royal Street, where some of that booming sound was in
we
fact people
know. Yeah,
parading their cars.
yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Now the
Live
last
chat.
the last show you're going to be doing is a favorite. They did this at Loyola University a few years ago. I think they actually did a musical of it, which is kind of interesting.
Oh,
But
cool.
this is actually again another black cast that you were paying homage to. Will this be the same way? Will this be another all black cast?
No, with all of the cast except for Emperor Jones, what I'm doing with this, I am going to do colorblind casting, except Emperor Jones.
Right.
How and gender blind, even with Emperor Jones, I think there could be an Empress Jones.
Ah,
Um,
so
mhm.
interesting. All
but
right.
I do think certainly one of the things that has appealed to me about choosing these plays is because they do provide amazing roles, because they were initially done with all African American cast, and that precedent has been set, and so that tone is there, and it is providing amazing really roles for African Americans as what it did at that time. So I've been very excited to be able to present these, as using the promotion from the Federal Theater Project that sort of visually is communicating that concept, even if someone didn't even know that that had existed, they're looking at this and they're going, oh wow, someone did that with an all African American cast, and it's attracting a tremendous number of actors of color. And
yeah, now Liz Estrada is going to have to probably remain gender centric for the women, right? You're not going to. You think you'd have that? Well, I mean, it's the whole idea is that the women are withholding their favors from the men in order to stop war, right? Isn't that the basic premise? So,
but Greece was pretty open, you know, with they were very sexually fluid in ancient Greece, and it might have stopped it if the men stopped.
I don't know.
I'm kidding. I'm just saying it's possible.
Yeah. Well, I would just think that's one of the things
right.
I would probably.
I think it does need. You are
because the historical
correct.
portion. But and again, I don't.
And you're right. As with, I think there's just absolutely no way to colorblind cast the character of the Emperor Jones. I think you can't. That's the no is there, and you are right. Actually, you can't really gender blind cast a play that's about the women stop having sex with the men and stop there being war. So you were right.
Well, that's all right. I mean, you know, you might have a role there that somebody could do who's trans. I would imagine that
that's
might.
What I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
And that was
and then I could understand.
It's like you can, but
yeah. So, you know, Breelynne, what do you think? A pretty good season, huh?
I'm excited, and I think it's great. Just the theme that we hope to get across is, you know, people taking power back, and I think that's a big theme right now. So I'm excited for everything to happen. Yeah.
So, what about tickets and things of that sort? I mean, how are you going to go about letting people know about these productions? Obviously, you're welcome to post all you want on NOLA Theater Folk on our Facebook group. But that's only going to reach about 460 some odd people. So my question is to you: how are you going to get the word out to the rest of the public? I mean, what have you planned on doing in terms of, you know, letting people know that you're here, announce the fact that this is your newest theater company in New Orleans?
Right. Well, one thing obviously is just utilizing and maximizing social media. Breelynne is going to be working on a TikTok channel for us. We are going to have our own webpage, our own Facebook page going up over the next week. So we're going to be spreading promotion online. Another advantage is of the quarter and all of this traffic is that you can very effectively promote things right here in a physical manner because there are so many people coming through. And also on travel sites, so many people are planning ahead, even as far as going into December. People who are planning their trips over the next few months for New Orleans, having it placed so that they can see this is something happening that they can schedule to do when they visit. And we'll have the ticketing set up. So if they're coming in November, but they're looking right now and planning, they'll be able to purchase a ticket for later productions, that sort of thing. So basically by organizing the marketing.
Are you going to do tickets like through the phone, or are you going to do tickets like you print out your own kind of a thing? Eventbrite or something along those lines?
Yeah, what I did with the Witches Balls was the phone ticketing where you can just come in and just show it. And the printing their own, I didn't have as much success with that. But it's certainly worth trying again and giving people as many options as possible.
Yeah. Well, you know, with the QR codes too, that's the other thing too. Now, one of the things I've been talking to people about doing too, and you may like the idea. Certainly, it's much more green than printing up programs. Programs are very important for people like me who are theater critics, but also for the audience members to be able to know who's portraying what. Not so much for the readings, but you know, when you get into the full productions, you want to see who deserves credit for what, et cetera, et cetera. So instead of using paper, what I've been asking people to think about doing is on websites that they might have, and you can get a cheap website or find somebody who can host it for you. But you know, you use the QR codes, which will give you the programs. I told the World War II Museum about doing it years ago when Victoria Reed was still the entertainment chair there. I think it was the Bob Hope entertainment director. And then I know that recently Rivertown Theaters have been using it. I think to me it's wonderful opportunity. The main thing is if you need to print out a copy of it, you can do that, but to save a tree or two or three, you can basically just have the QR codes and people can look at it on their phone at the performance. Of course, the problem, is they can't look at it during the performance because
Right.
that's very distracting.
Mhm.
I have a very dim view, and I hate to use the word dim view because it does sound like I'm making a pun. But for people who use cell phones during a performance, it is a problem. Very distracting. So, we want to make sure that all those phones are off during the performance, but either right before the show or right afterwards, so they can see what's going on. Consider that, just as a way to be green and kind of environmentally conscious as well. And
That's a great
I know that,
idea.
yeah. So just keep that in mind. We're getting towards the end of the night, and I know it goes a lot quicker than you think it is. You say, "Oh my goodness, it's a whole hour," and but we've covered pretty much your whole season, and we've given everybody an opportunity to learn a little bit about Quarter Renaissance Productions and to learn from Breelynne what she's doing and what you're doing. So now I'm going to pose a couple of questions. I mentioned to you this new venue sounds very exciting, and of course the outdoor space, the patio as well. How many people can you fit in? You said about 25 or 30 on the inside for the ballroom. What about the patio space? How big is that?
On the roof adjacent to the ballroom, and again, it's designed for people to be doing something on it. It's not just like a flat open space where it's got an iron around it. That would fit an additional 10 or maybe 10 to 15. I would say 10 to be on the very narrowly safe side.
Would that be used then as a performance space, perhaps?
The people parading with their cars are so loud I couldn't hear you. What was your question?
I said, could that be used as a performance space?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
yeah. As opposed to
that's what's so cool about this is that you could even seat people in the two rooms off of the ballroom, and that's what I'm thinking about looking at navigating, and we're going to be playing around with that. It could absolutely be a performance space, which would then enable the ballroom to seat, oh gosh, twice or more of the number of people. The performance would just have to be something that can be executed. Emperor Jones might work very well in that way, where it's one person on one square like that. But something like it can't happen here. I'm not so sure how that would work where you have larger groups on the stage. It would have to be the performances that have smaller groups at a time. Macbeth could also work in that way, and that would expand the seating tremendously. You would then fit certainly 50 people could then be seated in that ballroom. Downstairs, the courtyard, it's all very malleable and flexible. Seating in the gallery itself, which it used to be the carriageway, so it's a long, straight, narrow space, and the gallery can be used for seating, and then the courtyard as a stage. Again, that's going to work best in something where it's not a large number of people at any one time needing to be in that one, on that one square. But in that instance, the gallery would seat probably 30, 35, somewhere in there to 40, just depending on how it was spaced. You could also use the back house balcony as an onstage seating area. So there's a lot of flexibility and malleability with it, and it's really interesting the way the different spaces around the courtyard can then be used. Like the bottom room, there's a room in the bottom of the back house. We were doing music performance last night in the courtyard, and one of the people playing was just running through a song without any sound hooked up in that room. The acoustics were so astounding, the way it sounded out in the courtyard from the guy sitting the inside space, that the sound guy and I both just stopped everything and went in to hear what it sounded like in there. We're like, oh my gosh, how is it even sounding like that? So it's same with the ballroom. They're acoustically, they were designed to carry sound. Why that bottom room was, I'm not sure, but it appears to actually have been.
And you might be able to have some at the gallery. You might be able to have an event that would allow people to come in and witness the gallery, and maybe even have something that might be specific to your production that's going on. That would, you can do as well. And the other thing is, I mentioned, there are a number of producing groups in New Orleans that do theater as part of their outreach. The Tennessee Williams New Orleans Literary Festival is one that comes to mind. I'm sure that they would love to have another venue that people could stop by and see a play produced or something like that. This would, of course, be during the time that they are open, but you might be able to actually do your play, as part of that, and also maybe have it done before and after, so that you can actually make it profitable for you to open the play the week before the Tennessee Williams New Orleans Literary Festival, and then maybe after the festival's over, continue the play another week, so that you'd have like a 3-week run, and that might get you the money back from the production that you need to have to make it viable. Because obviously, if you do a show with the Tennessee Williams New Orleans Literary Festival, they're going to probably want to get a piece of that would go into their coffers as well. So you have to kind of like understand that week you're not going to make as much. So let's do what you can to the first week and then the third week. So again, there's some opportunities out there. And again, if anybody wants to reach you, I know you're going to have auditions, right? So let's talk about that. Tell me about what people need to do. How are they going to reach you for auditions?
Okay, so what people need to do to reach me for auditions, the easiest way is to email me at Elizabeth, ELIZABETH .Bissette, B as in boy, ISSETTE @gmail.com, and just put the word audition in the title heading. We are holding auditions for the season, beginning tomorrow, June 1st, going through the next 2 days, so June 1st through 3rd. They're in the evening, 7 to 9 p.m. on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then in the afternoon from 2 to 6 p.m. on Thursday. And we're going to continue auditioning the following week, also on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at the same times, having the first 2 days of auditions being in the evening, and the next one giving people who can't come at night the opportunity to audition in the daytime. And we've got 20-minute time slots available. And the first auditions will be cold readings from the script. And then we will be holding callbacks next week. Now, you can audition virtually if you want to.
I was about to ask, what about virtual? If somebody's not comfortable yet going out, they haven't gotten vaccinated yet, or they have a medical reason for not being vaccinated, what's the story on that?
We are holding virtual auditions also. You just need to let me know which way you prefer, if you want to do it virtually or in person. Callbacks are going to need to be in person. However, we just need to see how you work with the other actors.
And I know a lot of people are going to ask, are you going to be posting any of your COVID compliance, et cetera, that what you're going to be doing?
Yeah.
So because that's real important to a lot of people right now.
No, and it very much is to us too. And that's one reason why, even though, yes, the ballroom could be organized in a way that would enable more seating, we still want to keep it to small groups of people. And one of the things that first appealed to me is the space is so large that you can, allow distance between the seats for people. They can be spaced out and still get 20 to 25 people in there. Also, the advantage, even going into the fall, of utilizing the courtyard, things can be done in outside spaces. So as we just watch and see how things progress with the vaccinations and the risk factors, then we'll be shifting what we do accordingly. But starting off, yes, we're being very careful to be as safe as possible.
Thank you. Breelynne, thank you for being with us tonight. I'm going to ask you to stick around a little bit. Elizabeth, I want to thank you for being here as well. I'm going to ask you to stick around as well. I'm going to close out the show now, but thank you for being with us and involving us with your brand new quarter Renaissance Productions company, and again located at 536 Royal Street, correct?
36 Royal Street, yes.
Yeah. So there you go. All right, be right back. Just stick around while I close out the show. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is Alan Smason on NOLA Theater Talk. We hope you've been enjoying this past hour. We broadcast on Mondays and Fridays. Again, this is on NOLA Theater Facebook group, on the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, and also my own YouTube channel. And again, thank you for being with us tonight. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you at the theater.